Massive blaze in the Johannesburg CBD this morning. It is a very quickly developing story. The latest I had is that 20 people have died after a 5-story building caught fire in Marshalltown, Johannesburg. Heidi Giokos racing down to the CBD. Let's go to her now. Morning, Heidi. What do you have?
Yes, indeed, Gareth, a really tragic morning here in the CBD, but I think let's just get straight into it. We are joined by Robert Mulaudzi, who is from Emergency Services. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Mulaudzi. A really tragic scene here. Maybe just tell us what exactly happened and the number of fatalities so far.
Yes, we can confirm that at around 1:30 this morning, we were called here at corner Albert and Delva Street in Johannesburg inner city, where it was reported that a 5-story building has caught fire, which is one of those hijacked buildings in the inner city. On arrival, we started evacuating the people who were inside, and while we were conducting our firefighting operations, we managed to recover about 20 bodies so far, and 43 people were treated for smoke inhalation and also minor injuries. They were transported to various healthcare facilities in the city of Johannesburg, like Hillbrow, Para, and so on. So far, the fire has been extinguished. We are doing what we call now search and recovery, and also damping down, just extinguishing the hotspots. Since the building itself is actually an informal settlement inside, so there's a lot of debris which we have to go through just to remove any uncertainty in terms of, maybe the bodies, other bodies which might still be trapped inside the building. So we're doing that floor by floor. There's also a risk of the structural integrity, since we know that the building has been hijacked. The structural integrity is compromised. So we're doing that very much cautiously to make sure that we protect our firefighters as and when we are continue to conduct this search and recovery operation. So far, I will say that is the latest development which about this fire incident.
Okay, I just have a few questions. In terms of the possibility of more bodies being recovered, are you saying to me that there could be more fatalities, or are you not sure at this stage?
Yes, there is possibilities of more bodies being recovered. Because of the number of people who were residing inside the building. There was a lot of people who were residing in the building, and also since there's a lot of partition inside the building, so it's like informal structures inside that building. So you have to make sure that as and when we're conducting this search and recovery, we remove that debris just to check whether there won't be there's no maybe a body which might still be recovered, as and when we go through. So we have to do that floor by floor. As soon as we are satisfied that the building is cleared, we don't have any other bodies, we will hand over this incident to South African Police Service. Since you understand that it's a crime scene. I mean, we have lost about 20 people, which is too much. I mean, I've never come across an incident like this in my over 20 years of service in the department. So it is really a devastating fire incident which we had to respond to this morning. And also we have activated other stakeholders in the city, because we've got families who are affected here. We've got mothers who have lost their loved ones. So we have activated our other city stakeholders, to come and assist us to be able to handle that other side of the incident. We also have our disaster management officials who are here on site, who are now starting to facilitate, relief for the affected families.
I'd like to ask you if you can, at this point, tell me whether or not any minors were involved in the 20 that have lost their lives.
Yes, unfortunately, we lost the baby. The baby might be about 1 year or 2 years. The baby was part of the people who lost their lives, about the 20 people who lost their lives. So out of the 20, the one person there is a child who is about between 1 and 2 years.
Do we know the cause of the fire? I mean, if you're telling me that this is a hijacked, or rather not a hijacked, an informal settlement within a building.
Yes.
I mean, essentially that means the building has been hijacked. But do we know what the cause of this fire was, and how extensive was this fire given the 20 lives that have been lost?
Yeah, it was at this stage the cause of the fire incident is still a subject of investigations. However, since it's an hijacked building, there's 2 or 3 possibilities. It might be illegal connection, which could have started the fire. It might be some of the heating devices they're using, because we are told that there was no electricity at the time when the fire started. So they might be using other heating devices like paraffin stoves, candles, and any other things. So those are some of the possibilities which might be the cause of this fire incident. Of course, the extent of the fire incident was huge because of the combustible materials which is inside the building, which you find inside the buildings, because there's actually partitions inside the structure itself, which makes it much more even difficult for us as and when we are extinguishing this fire incident. And also there's a huge concern for us as and when we're conducting these firefighting operations of the structural integrity, since the building has been hijacked. So we have to make sure that we operate cautiously, to make sure that we protect the firefighters on the ground, and everyone, all the personnel who are within the fire ground, and of course all the people who are working in this environment, so that we don't extend the injuries which we might have on this fire incident.
I'd like to ask you, you're saying that 43 people have been treated and have been taken to various hospitals.
Yes.
Are you able to ascertain how many people were actually inside the building? Because if only 43 have been injured, how many were actually in the building? Are you able to
it's I would say, over 200 people might be inside, even more, but we don't have the exact number. But the structures inside, there's a lot of structures inside there, so I would say over 200 people were inside that building.
Have they all been evacuated now? Nobody's allowed in the building?
All the people have been evacuated. As you see, they're standing on the side of the building. They've been evacuated. Right now, we're just focusing on making sure that we continue with that search and recovery, so that we can make sure that there's no one body which might still be inside, and then from there we'll hand over the scene to the South African Police Service for further investigations.
Okay. Just one last question, Mr. Molotsi. You said in the 20 years being in service, you've never seen something like this. I wonder if you could maybe just tell us, when you got here, was the fire extensive? Was it a large fire, or
yes, it was. It was a large fire. Of course, it was chaotic because everybody wanted to move out. So we had to come in terms of making sure that we smoothly evacuate them, and then we try and minimize the injuries which might be sustained while people are being evacuated, which we're happy about, that we managed to make sure that most of the people are evacuated while we're busy, on the other side conducting our firefighting operations. As a fire service, we've invested a lot of energy in terms of our public education, in terms of disaster preparedness, making sure that our residents are informed about what to do when there's a fire emergencies like the ones which we have now here. And of course, our fire safety unit, they continue to make sure that they inspect the buildings to make sure that the buildings are complying with the city's fire services bylaws. And of course, we still have challenges in terms of the number of buildings which have been hijacked, which are mostly the most common causes of the fire incidents in the inner city. Most of the buildings which we find ourselves responding to are mostly these buildings which are hijacked or abandoned buildings.
Just very lastly, the 43 people that have been taken to hospital, are you able to tell us if it's serious injuries or moderate? How serious?
No. The injuries, most of the 43 people, most of them are walking patients. They just sustained some smoke inhalation, some minor injuries. So those 43 people are not really badly injured. We're hoping that they will be able to be released soon from hospital. We are just worried about the other family members who has lost their loved ones, and we had to activate other city stakeholders to make sure that those family members, they receive trauma counseling. So we have activated our chaplaincy services within the fire service to come and assist us to make sure that they can be able to handle that part of the incident while we continue with our search and recovery operation.
Okay, thank you so much for your time, Mr.
Thank you very
Molotsi.
much.
I'm sure we'll still be engaging with you throughout the morning. That is, of course, the EMS spokesperson, Mr. Robert Molotsi. And, you know, Gareth, unfortunately, I'm just going to move out of shot, but unfortunately we've been told that we cannot actually move in any closer because this is still a crime scene. It is, of course, still rescue and operations that are still ongoing here. So we've been strictly told to not go any closer, as we also do understand that they are still trying to recover bodies from the building. I'm maybe just going to ask my colleague Asanda to just maybe possibly pan to the building, but there is a huge fire truck that is almost blocking the way. But excuse me. So we don't know at this particular point what caused the fire, but we do understand that so far 20 people have tragically lost their lives. You heard Mr. Molotsi saying that in his 20 years of service he's never seen anything like this, and you can just imagine the chaotic scenes from this morning where people were just trying to get out. The fact that this is a hijacked building, and he's basically indicated that this is a situation where there's basically an informal settlement inside the actual building, shows you that what could have possibly be going on inside here, how many people were in one room, which speaks to the serious issue within the city of Johannesburg around hijacked buildings. We know this is a major problem. EMS Services also just telling us a short while ago that in actual fact the most common cause of fires is normally in these hijacked buildings that are suddenly turned into these informal settlements. So you can see firefighters are, of course, just trying to possibly take a break. They've been up since about 1:30 this morning when they started receiving reports about this particular fire. It does remain an active scene. It does remain a developing story. Tragically, we have been also told that there could still be more fatalities that might still be reported as they are trying to move in the building floor by floor. From what I can see, Gareth, I think this is about a 5-story building. I might be wrong because I can't really see from where I'm standing, but from where I can, it looks like it's about 5 stories. So just imagine needing to go through there. It seems as though the fire actually started possibly from ground floor all the way up, in actual fact. So it does seem as though this is quite an extensive fire. I would have liked to get Mr. Molotsi back just to ask him where the fire actually started, if they can ascertain if it was on ground level or if it started higher up. But I do see he's busy with other media engagements. But so far, this is what we are seeing here in the inner city of Johannesburg, Gareth.
I see there was a lot of evacuations according to the information we were getting as well, Heidi. So I'm not too sure where those people, those residents who did manage to get out, where they're currently standing. But let's not forget this is a very, very quickly developing and breaking news story. At least 20 dead, but Robert's saying, Heidi, there could very well be more. Terrible news as well that there's a miner involved, but I'm quite sure there's going to be a lot of people who are standing around and looking at their own home having burnt down, but thankfully they were able to get out. I just want to touch on one thing, Heidi, maybe while we see if we don't get Robert back with us from Joburg EMS. I know he's busy elsewhere, but there was a bit of disinformation going around this morning. I think let's just dispel this. This fire, from what I'm hearing from Robert, had nothing to do with the tremor in Johannesburg last night. I've seen people on social media passing on fake news, suggesting the tremor had something to do with this. I didn't hear Robert mention anything of the sort. Is that correct?
No, I don't. I don't think it has anything to do with the tremor, but I do have him back here. I've managed to just grab him back. Sorry, Mr. Molotsi, I just quickly want to ask you 2 questions. Do we know which floor the fire started on? Because it
on the
seems
ground floor. It started on the ground floor.
It started on the
Ground floor.
And
Yes.
all the way up?
Yes.
It's a 5-story building.
Yes. It's a 5-story building.
Okay. My colleague Gareth Edwards is saying that there's some misinformation on social media about the tremor having caused the fire, which I think has nothing.
No. The tremor is a separate incident. The tremor was reported at around 25 minutes past 9 yesterday, which was reported in most parts of Rodiport, Protea Glen, Soweto, and surrounding areas. So regarding the tremor itself, it was confirmed by the Council of Geoscience that its magnitude was about 2.7 on Richter scale. We didn't have any damages or fatalities or injuries which was caused by the tremor itself. And I think that is the update which we have. So we were on high alert throughout overnight, monitoring all the regions and also monitoring our call center to see if we can be able to receive any reports regarding the tremor itself. But we didn't have any reports of injuries or fatalities which might be caused by the tremor.
Okay, just lastly, I know you did say that other services have since been dispatched, but the people that have been evacuated, where have they been taken to?
No, the people who have been evacuated are still on site here. Our disaster management officials are here together with the community leaders, our councillors, and also other city stakeholders to facilitate, in terms of relief and also counseling, because there are members who have lost their loved ones. There are mothers who have lost their loved ones here who still need to receive that counseling. So we've got our chaplaincy services on site also who will be dealing with that part of the incident while we continue with our search and recovery operation.
Thank you so much. Thank you once again. Thanks, Mr. Molotsi. I think there, just for some clarity, Gareth, that people have still not been moved to any area at this particular moment, as they are trying to, of course, get through the scene and try and figure out exactly where people will be evacuated. So, we are being asked to move. It's a very difficult situation, Gareth, and I think it's because it's still an active crime scene. So it becomes very difficult for us to be able to move in. And I think that's, let's just give some context to our viewers. If they're probably asking why I'm not moving in, I'm not allowed to move in at this particular point because it remains an active. I just want my colleague Asanda to be careful because we do have this JMPD minibus that's trying to reverse out. But we have been told we cannot get any closer because you also have another situation, Gareth, where you have onlookers and people walking past, people getting to work. You have, apartments opposite and next door to this building that's caught fire that possibly want to take videos and see what's going on, and what they're trying to avoid is this spreading on social media, and then people don't know that this has happened. They might see their loved ones, they don't know what's going on. So that's why we just have to be extra cautious and just be careful. I think we can try and go a little closer. Just if you can bear with me, Gareth, we are going to just move the camera. So
yeah, that's fine, Heidi. You go ahead. Let me just fill viewers in while you and Asanda make your way forward. If you just joined us, a very good morning to you. 18 away from 7, our developing and breaking news this morning. An overnight fire in the early hours of this morning. It sounds like it is a building on the corner of the Johannesburg inner city. It's the corner of Alberts and Dalvers. Officials telling us around 1:30 this morning on the corner of Alberts and Dalvers. So I'm not sure if you know the area. Those are photos that were sent to us earlier this morning. I'm sure we also have the footage of the building that was on fire much earlier this morning. At least 20 people have died. We understand one of those fatalities is a minor, according to Robert Malawutsi from Gauteng EMS and Joburg EMS. 43 people being treated, thankfully 43 people treated. It looks like what he calls walk-in injuries. Essentially it's for smoke inhalation and probably some very minor injuries, but no other serious injuries being treated at the moment. All right, there we go. Now we've got our first look at the building. It looks like Heidi and Asanda, our camera team, have found a much better angle. Heidi, let me come back to you because now we've got a much better view of what you've been trying to describe. Heidi, you're still with us?
Yes, Gareth, I am still indeed with you. What I do understand is that this building is called the Osindiso building. It is, of course, as Robert Molotsi did indicate, that it is a hijacked building. I think we are going to be asked to move at this particular point. But you can just quickly see, before we are asked to move, the extent of the fire that took place here. It does seem as though it was quite a serious blaze that happened just after 1:30 this morning. That's when EMS services started to receive reports of a blaze here in the inner city of Johannesburg. Really extensive. As I've mentioned to you before, it remains an active scene. We do understand that firefighters have they now need to move in floor by floor, as we've mentioned. It is and basically an informal settlement within the building, so it becomes very difficult for firefighters to move in and really get through all the rubble, everything that's basically in this building. I think, do we need to move? Okay, we have been asked to move.
All right, Heidi, that's fine. You go ahead and move. Don't stress. I can see Robert asking you guys to move out the way. We'll let Heidi and Sunda, our camera operators, just move. It's still very active. We've got fire trucks trying to move in and out. We've got ambulances. We've got JMPD, SAPS. Really, every form of emergency response is in the Johannesburg inner city at the moment, a corner of Alberts and Delver. So we'll let Heidi go there for the moment.